winter's regular planning commission meeting to order. And Jago, if you'll call the roll.
Commissioner Adams? Here. Altamirano? Here. Contreras? Here. Riley? Schrupp? Here. Vice Chair Baker? Chairperson Miles? Here.
Brandon, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at 6:31, we will open it up for citizen input on anything not on the agenda. We have just one item on the agenda, so anyone else would like to speak to at this meeting? Seeing none, we will close that. We'll now go to the consent item, the minutes. Any comments, changes, corrections, adjustments? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. They are approved. We will now go to the discussion items. David Oswald, discussion item.
We lost our PowerPoint somewhere. See if I can do this without making things today. Skip ahead about 30. Okay. The item before you tonight is an application by Crown Communities to subdivide the remaining portion of the property that is owned by the LDS Church. It wraps around the existing church, comes up Anderson Way. It's backed up to their existing Heartland subdivision. It's a 3.29 acre parcel. The proposed map that you see in front of you is to subdivide it into 18 lots. And the lots vary in size from about 4,200, I think, to about 6,500 square feet. Included in this subdivision, if you see sort of to the lower part of the cul-de-sac bulb, is what's going to be an emergency vehicle access that will lead people through, or allow the fire department to go through the existing church parking lot, and then there'll be some sort of locking gate system that will access the cul-de-sac, so that will provide a second entrance into the subdivision itself. Some of the changes that have come about as we've gone through this process, this was originally going to be a 23 lot subdivision. The applicants met with the DRC on October 3rd, and at the meeting they discussed with them the concept of doing 18 lots with all single story homes ranging in size from 1,400 to 1,840 square feet. Change in the design was based on conversations that from the planning commission hearings involving the Heartland subdivision, which they attended obviously, and where the discussion about having houses that would come in at a lower entry point from a cost perspective. It doesn't show up, I don't think, here. Go back now. So there. So if you see on this shot here, they're proposing no parking in the portion that we call the cul-de-sac, not where there is driveways leading to those two lots, 18 and I believe, remember the number at the top. And then there also we're proposing no parking in front of lots 7 and 8. Those are the ones that are opposite the corner parcel and on the curvature of the corner parcel, which is lot 15 is the corner parcel, 7 and 8 are the outside corner part of the street. If you look on the western side of the church or the eastern side of the roadway leading in there, one of the things that we had them do was eliminate the sidewalk. There was originally going to be a sidewalk connecting from Anderson on both sides of the proposed street. We didn't see a reason to have sidewalk on that side because there are no houses on that side of the street. And so by eliminating the sidewalk, it allowed them to deepen the lots that are lots 1 through 7 as you enter the subdivision. They would be on the west side. Concerns that we have with the project as it relates to the map. I mentioned in the staff report that the proposal to not allow parking in front of lots 7 and 8, to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And here's the example I used before the meeting. If you're coming to visit me and I say park in front of my driveway, which is where you have opening leading to the street, but it says, no, you're not allowed to park there. First off, I don't know how any police officer would ever know that that was illegal, that you can't park in front of the driveway leading to lot 7 and 8. The reason for that is because this doesn't meet the city's standard as far as the outer side of the curvature. It's supposed to be a knuckle like this. That's the typical standard. And so when you have the knuckle, obviously you have the room in which to park cars. Mr. Adams probably knows it firsthand since he lives on one. What I don't know is when the engineer provided me this alternate design, whether or not you could put a single-story house on the remainder of lots 7 and 8, or even a 2-story house, which is something that I suggested in the staff report. But that's the reason for why we don't favor prohibiting parking on the design as proposed by the applicant, because we just don't feel it's enforceable. And again, this is also fire department can have access. The whole idea for all of these things is so that as a fire truck is turning the corner, it has the ability to clear any vehicles that may be parked on the street heading to an emergency further in on the cul-de-sac. The other issue has to do with design. So when this was proposed to the DRC, the applicant stated we need to do simpler designs with less moving parts so that we can lower the cost. And when I mean moving parts, less trim. All the models, as you see here, have just standard gable roofs. When you go to a hip or a clip or some other type of roof, it adds to the cost. This is the plan for plan 1. Here's plan 2, similar elevations, again, similar roof style. Plan 3, again, the same roof style, similar elevations, similar trim. And this is what they all look like together. And so when you look at them as a group, you can really see that there's a ton of similarity. From a design standpoint, staff's concerned with that. You're almost going in the opposite direction. So the planning commission said, let's don't all do 2 stories. Let's do something with some differentiation. Now we've gone to all 1 stories. There seems to me that there could be a happy medium where you had some 2 stories and some 1 stories. Introducing some 2 stories might allow some of those units to have off-street parking in the side yard. There are just a lot of ways that you could approach this and still keep at least some of the homes, not all of the homes, maybe at a lower price point. So that was the other concern, was design. As far as the plan development overlay zone, and I pulled those charts out of the staff report when we recommended there be a continuous, but in the proposal that was presented to the DRC, most of the single-story houses were approaching 50% lot coverage. There were some, the larger lots, where it was like in the 45%. I think you remember that we've been working on these subdivisions. We've tried to foresee that the owners are going to want to add a patio cover. And that patio cover is going to be 10 by 12 or 10 by 15 or some dimension that, you know, is reasonable to expect. And so one of the concerns I had, because I didn't have the information on a lot by lot basis, was will they be able to add a patio cover? And if so, how close is that patio cover going to come to the rear yard property line? You know, is it going to be 5 feet away, 6 feet away, 8 feet away? The plan isn't developed enough, and I was unable from the chart to really determine how the PD overlay was going to work for these lots. I think it can be workable, but I don't have that information to say with certainty that it will. And so that was the third concern. So in summary, the concerns that we mentioned having to do with the design of the tentative map, the design of the similarity of all the elevations, the roof style, those kind of things, the uncertainty of how the PD overlay was going to work, All of those things combined, we felt that this should be continued at least until the November 12th meeting to allow the applicant to respond to staff's comments and any comments that you may have as a planning commission.
Okay. Questions? Do we want to hear from the applicant?
I think that's the next.
That'd be okay? That'd be good? I'll save my comments and stuff till after.
Hi, I'm Cal Dackbauer from the Crown Committees. I have some written comments that I'd like to go over. Crown Committees is pleased to be here with the project for the Great Community Center that offers first-time homebuyers the opportunity to buy single-story homes close to schools and parks that will have larger lots than a number of the recently approved projects nearby. I will be reviewing project features, few items, and address a few of the items raised in the staff report. Our engineer will address our latest refinements to the map, which address a couple of the concerns staff has on the map, emergency vehicle access, and parking issues. Cam will finish off with product type details on the home and PD items raised by the staff. The first item is on paragraph 1 on what's titled in background. It's a minor item, but I just want to clarify that the DRC meeting that we attended, there's a comment there that says that the project points that were submitted on that letter, on the staff report, were based upon our desire to, well, it was not due to the unusual shape of the property. As far as the design that we submitted, had nothing to do with the design, the shape of the property. You see where it says that in the first paragraph? There are no alternatives to the street layout as far as the shape of the parking. There are no, that is really the only way we could submit any project. I just wanted to point that out, that our desire was we presented a smaller single-story product to be able to provide an affordable alternative to home buyers and renters. I remember there was much discussion in regard to the affordability of the product during that meeting. One other thing on the first paragraph, the staff report further states in the first paragraph that applicants are also requesting the property to be rezoned to add a planned development overlay zone to the existing single-family residential zoning in order to create lots that are substandard in size, have reduced side and rear yard setbacks, and exceed the allowable lot coverage. Now, this description or components of this description are noted on more than one occasion in the staff report. I just want to point out that non-conforming lot sizes and reduced setbacks are typical of all PD overlay zones submitted. It's part of the definition of a PD overlay zone. Now, Callahan Estates, which is known as Heartland, Winters Highlands, which is known as Stones Throw, and Aspire, as far as marketing names for the builders there, as well as an older neighborhood known as the Cottages, all have a planned development component right nearby the subject property. A planned development overlay zone request is commonplace. These lots mentioned have all been approved by the city of Winters with a planned development overlay. When I show you these projects on a map, you will see the size of these lots, how they compare with the subject property, and the proximity of this property to the other projects previously approved. You want to pull that map up? You may have to zoom in and scroll down a little bit to show the subject. Okay, there it is. You see the LDS property with the green box? Just quickly, we've got 18 lots, average square foot overall is 4428. the lot width is 60, average depth is 78. Just north of there, the nearest project, if you go to Winters Highlands to your right, there you go. Phase 1A, there's 48 lots, 4,502 square feet average size, 43 feet wide, 100 feet deep. Now, if you look at the two real quick, it's just if you compare the size just from this level, is all to scale to the subject, you'll see the subject is obviously you can see the width of the lot, and I'll get back to that in a second. Going to the next project, you have 52 lots in Winters Highlands Phase 2, 3,762 square feet, 42-foot width, 85-foot depth, and about 0.31 miles from the subject. The third project, it's incorrectly labeled. It's actually Winters Highlands Phase 4 and 5, I believe. Identical lots as the previous phase, same footage, width, depth, about a quarter mile from the subject. And then if you look at the last one, Cottages, that's the older community that has a PD overlay zone on it. 30 lots, 2,601 square feet. The width is 36, depth is 72, and it's right across from the subject. So you can see there's been a good number of projects approved within the vicinity of the subject. Now, the main thing being is these lots are wider, shallow, versus the narrow, deep lot that you see with the other subdivisions. For example, the lot widths on the other projects noted there are 36 to 43 feet wide versus a subject that is 60 feet wide. Significant difference when you look at the appearance of the homes in a wider lot neighborhood versus a narrow lot neighborhood. It's quite different. If you start off with the houses, when you have the narrow design, let's start off with the neighborhood. The neighborhood leaves more congestion because you have cars parked on the street with narrow lots that have a good portion of the lot taken up by driveway and setback, so it does not leave a lot of space for cars. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to avoid that. In fact, over the years, I've come across many projects, especially in Sacramento, tiny lots, 2,500 square foot, or, just smaller than these especially, that were narrow lot designs that we didn't go forward with because of knowing what the neighborhood is going to look like as you progress and develop that neighborhood. It's going to be congestion. You got narrow lots, you got more people in smaller space. That's just the way it works. So our lots on this particular project with the 60 will definitely give you the feeling when you pull into that neighborhood, this is not a narrow lot, smaller home subdivision. It will give you that feel of space, which is important. For instance, the house itself, with the setbacks that we're proposing here, the building itself is going to be 50 feet wide. On the other lots, they range anywhere from 26 to 33 feet wide or smaller in size. Makes a big difference on how the appearance of the neighborhood is as it's built out. Not to mention the fact, if you look at all of those projects, aside from ours, they're going to all have two-story homes. There's no way around doing anything but two-story homes. And I'm not opposed to two-story homes, but when you have two-story homes and only two-story homes, we all know what it looks like when it's done. It doesn't look as good as if it was more of a mix, or just the single stories don't give you that crater kind of a canyon kind of a look. When you go look down the street and you see a two-story on each side, it kind of gives you that different look that is not as desirable. And again, I bring this up, I don't mean to bring it up and say these are inferior products and inferior projects. I don't mean to bring it up. I'm just trying to compare with what we have to what this is.
Can I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Chairman? Just a quick question. Can you contextualize those statements with regard to the setbacks in those other projects and elaborate a little bit on, the fact that you're putting a two-story home on a narrower lot size?
I'll even
but-
make it easier for you.
A little bit of that one.
Yeah. Pull up, I took a couple of pictures today. You can kind of pull up the pictures for like, Winters Highlands Phase 1 of that. I just did that today. So as you can see, these lots are 43 by 100, and you can see they take up a majority of there's not much space left. That is your parking area, aside from on the driveway, garage. I believe some of these lots have parking on the side. But, when that's lived in, you're gonna have a lot of cars there, and you don't have a lot of space. If you go to the next picture.
The backyards on those?
The backyard, being they're 100 feet deep, they're gonna have a deeper yard, but it's still only gonna be 43 feet wide. What we find with the market for this price range of buyer is not as concerned about having the deep yard. They'd rather have not everybody's the same, but a good portion of them would prefer a low maintenance yard versus a huge yard. Plus, they come to expect a smaller yard when you're looking at a first time price range. So you can see like I mentioned, again, nothing against that there's a place for that, but the view of just nothing but two-story homes is not quite the same. Keep going to the pictures, I guess, might as well stay on. This is the street, that's a good example of looking at as far as the cars. This is the cottages. These lots are 36 feet wide. And this is this afternoon. Same time I took the other pictures under construction, I took a spin, and as you can see, a lot of cars. Whereas the wider lot will prevent that feeling of congestion. You want to keep going? See how the two stories all together do give you a different look. So back to what I was saying, the biggest lot we've done is 50 by 100. We've passed on a lot of smaller lot projects for that particular reason. The one last point, or actually two more points. One, if you look at the page 4 of the staff report, the environmental assessment, I'm just going to read it out loud. First section 15332, class 32 of the CEQA guidelines, the proposed subdivision is considered an infill development project and meets A, the proposed 18-lot subdivision is consistent with the general plan designation of low-density residential, which allows up to 24 lots, and is consistent with all applicable general plan policies as well as the single-family residential zoning. The proposed development occurs within the city limits on a project site of 3.29 acres, which is less than 5 acres permitted for infill development. The project site has no value as habitat for endangered, rare, or threatened species. Approval of the project would not result in any significant effects relating to traffic, noise, air or water quality. The site is adequately served by all the required utilities which are located in Anderson Street and can be served by public services. My next point, if you go to the page with the paragraph entitled Tended Map, last item, it is assumed, you see where it says it is assumed children will use this EVA and the church parking lot as a shortcut to Anderson Street. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So we don't agree with this provision as we are providing a street and sidewalk for the project residents to use. We put in the streets, we put in the sidewalk. To impose this requirement for an adjoining property owner that allows pedestrians to enter their private property subjects this landowner to a variety of potential liabilities that most landowners do not want. You wanna pull up that picture?
The walk?
If you look, what we're talking about here, there's a church and there's a project. The distance between the very furthest lot over to the east to where the turn of the street is 350 feet, which equals about a 1 minute walk. Now, if there was like a significant walking distance, we'd be having a different conversation. I guess the conversation we're having right now is regarding a 1 minute, 350-foot walk. And to oppose the liability to, whether it was LDS Church or anyone, the liability of a pedestrian access for anybody. Of course, you know, the intent is you put it in there for children, but that doesn't guarantee that's all that's coming through there. You can have anyone walk through their parking lot, walk to the back, and, you know, it's a security issue in a way, I believe. But we do not agree with that, and want to make that known. Especially if you just mainly looking at the distance. If we were looking at 10-minute walk, 20-minute walk, it'd be a different story, but we're talking about 60 seconds. So to give you a summary, we're proposing 3 different plans with 3 different elevations to be built on 18 lots. Typically, 3 plans, 3 elevations, typically would serve anywhere from 25 to 40 lots. Generally, when we look at the project, we're coming forward and saying, we're gonna do 3 different plans and 3 different elevations for a handful of lots. The subdivision design has 18 lots versus the 24 lots that are allowed for this parcel. That is 25% less than the maximum number of lots allowed on this parcel. So we're not trying to max it out and say, let's put 24 or what have you. We're cutting it down to 18 to be able to achieve the goal of getting single-story, more affordable product on these lots. I've given you an analysis on the 4 different projects within a quarter mile of subject that have been approved by the city of Winters. The lot sizes on this project are larger than 3 of those 4. What, can you pull up that map again? If you look at those 4 projects, the lot sizes are on our project are larger than 3 of the 4 projects that I'm showing you that are within proximity of subject. The one project that has larger lots, which is Winters Highlands Phase 1A, the lots are 74 square foot larger. They're not significantly larger, they're a hair larger. Crown's alternative design allows us to provide more affordable homes in Winters to serve residents that are not able to buy a new home at this time. As an existing builder in Winters, we have made concessions by reducing the number of lots, addressing site constraints, and have made many concessions. California's housing element law acknowledges that in order for the private market to adequately address the housing needs and demand of Californians, local governments must adopt plans and regulatory systems that provide opportunities for and do not unduly constrain housing development. As a result, housing policy in California rests largely on the effective implementation of local general plans and in particular local housing elements. Communities all over the state are relaxing their minimum standards to meet the recently established stringent guidelines by the state for cities to better react to specific site constraints and address city regional housing needs allocation housing obligations. I am urging the planning commission to pose the question of whether the city's obligations in regards to the RHNA have been considered on this project. Thank you very much. And now, is Brian here? Yeah. Come on up, Brian.
We'll come back, make notes, we'll come back. I got it. Have to clean them up.
Brian Benino with Long Arm Nickel. Your city engineers in here tonight, I'll just go over some of the proposed revisions we're going over that Alan will probably have to redo, just so you're aware of what we tried to do to provide more parking and still maintain some of the larger lot standards.
Which one did you want to do? The update?
Yeah, down there. Can we go to the last page? 4. Zoom in on the knuckle. So what we did for that knuckle is we increased the inside radius where it says no parking there to 45 feet, city standards 40 on the knuckle. And what that gave us was a 50-foot wide road section through there. And then that allowed parking on those 2 lots. What you're showing there is normally on your cul-de-sac standards, your requirement is to provide 2 on-site parking and 1 off-site. If you can't provide that off-site parking, which is on the street parking, then accommodate 1 more on-site. So for these lots here, I show a configuration where we provide the 3 parking spots on-site if that's what's required, or you can reduce those driveways down to a 2-car garage and get an additional spot on there if you want. So what we did is widen that area to accommodate the parking. The darker lines in the middle of the street are the fire truck lane, or the fire truck movement, so you can see there's no issues with fire truck movements through there. On the interior corner, for the corner lot, there's a fire hydrant there, and then normally you don't really want parking on that inside corner anyway for site visibility and safety. So what we tried to do there is widen up the radiuses to accommodate the parking, but it is not per your standard, so we would be asking Alan to review an engineering design exception for that if it seems reasonable to you. And then let's go to the cul-de-sac area. The original plan that was submitted to the DRC had a smaller cul-de-sac. That seemed to be a concern to DRC. So what you have there is your city standard cul-de-sac with a radius of 52 feet. So that there, even with that, our fire truck movements are, if we would have parking on all of the cul-de-sac, a normal fire truck wouldn't work there. So we were providing for some no parking. If you look at the back of the cul-de-sac, there's a fire hydrant there, right there. And then as you go south from there, you run into the EVE area where you wouldn't have parking anyway. So the fire truck needs to be able to pull up in there and then head south and go through the LDS property. So there is limited parking. This plan shows an additional parking spot right there. That one will work. That wasn't shown on any of the previous ones. The other areas where we have additional parking is on the north-south roadways over to the west. Since there are no houses there, you can accommodate another 12 vehicles that you wouldn't normally find in a standard subdivision because there's no houses there. So as far as parking, there's more than enough parking to meet what the city normally would require. Those were the main operations, main issues I saw. But that's what we did to improve parking and to still try to meet all your design standards or criteria.
Good evening, planning commissioners, Cam Tackler, good evening, Mr. City Manager. Appreciate your time this evening, and I think that there may be a little bit of slight duplication, because I want to share kind of the evolution of this project too. Mr. Meyer had the opportunity of hearing some things that the rest of you haven't during our DRC meeting. So anyway, why don't you hit the next slide there, sir? We all know where the subject property is. I want to share with you what our original plan is as a builder developer. What we do is we go look at property, and I mean, obviously we're a business, and to stay in business, we have to generate revenue and make a profit to pay the bills. So our original plan, or our original lens that we looked through this project, was kind of the status quo. Let's evaluate a piece of property, okay? And let's go ahead and say, okay, what's kind of the max that we could do here, okay? So our original design narrative, if you will, was to basically come in here, business as usual, 2-story homes. Let's get up to 24 lots. I think that was the maximum at the time that we could do. Let's do 2,000 to 2,300 square foot homes. And let's meet the City of Winters design guidelines. In other words, just kind of adding more to the mix of what's going on out there right now. So that was our original plan, and that was our original lens that we were looking through. And what that yielded essentially is this 23 lot subdivision, where we were going to come over here and just build a bunch of 2-story homes, 2,000 to 2,400 square feet, just like normal, okay? So that was our land use component for that original plan, okay? And this is what the elevations that we came up with, you know, something nice, something pretty. There they are, 2-story homes, plenty of stone, plenty of features, siding. I mean, if you look at those roof lines, there's a lot of dollars there, but at the same time, we'd be able to command those dollars because the buyer would be, you know, able to pay for that. Okay, so then what we decided to do is we decided to come up with a revised game plan. Let's look through a different lens here, and that's when what we decided to do is we want to take a look at Winters in general. What's going on in Winters, okay? And what we did is we put on our consumer hat as opposed to our developer hat, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Won't work otherwise.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Pull the mic out.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
Welcome to karaoke night. Okay. Okay. So you know, we said, hey, let's look at this from a different lens. If we were a consumer, what does it take to get a new home in Winters? How do you achieve the American dream with a new home in Winters? Well, right now you got 3 options. KHOV starting at about 440,000, 1,700 square feet, 2-story. Homes by Town, Stones Throw, 475,000, about 1,800 square feet. Crown Heartlands, 520 grand, starting footage at 2,000, okay? So as we sat here and looked at this and put on the consumer hat, if you will, for people who live in Winters or would like to move to Winters, okay? And we looked at this and we said, you know, and again, we don't have all the exact metrics. We didn't take a survey, but I think we could say with confidence that not all Winters residents can afford these communities. I mean, a starting price of 450,000 is quite a bit. So, you know, so what we decided is that, you know, it would be beneficial to have a new home project at a lower entry point to allow home ownership attainable by local families, you know, and part of that was we're already doing 110 homes in Heartlands. You know, let's look at this differently and try to get a lower entry point. Okay, so basically what we did is we changed the direction of the project because, and you know, I think part of I think who we really need to thank is the Planning Commission, city leadership, and the city council, because every time we brought a project, the last few times, they said, what are you guys doing? Big houses, big footage, 2-story, we need something smaller, and we need something smaller. So I assume that your constituents were telling you that, okay? But then myself personally, I've had the opportunity to go to the Buckhorn, waiting for a meeting and striking up a conversation with some people. And this actually happened twice, where I'm sitting at the Buckhorn and everybody's so friendly, and oh, well, what are you doing here? Haven't seen you here much. And you start talking, and I say, well, actually, I'm part of the team building some of those houses out there, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. And you start to talking to them a little more, and they say, well, thanks, but we can't afford those houses. Why don't you build something smaller, something more affordable? So all this pounding kind of, I guess, sank in. Okay, so we appreciate your leadership on that. So we decided, let's look at an option that's actually going to meet the needs of these people that I came across and meet the needs of City Council and Planning Commission's desires there. So what we did is we put together a design narrative. That's usually how we start our project, and we say, okay, what's our goal? Our goal is to provide smaller single-story homes, because we've been beat up on the head so many times for it, okay? And then we said, well, let's look at 14 to 1900 square foot, 3 to 4 bedrooms, and let's get that target price point for these people, these wonderful local residents of Winters, where they have a more affordable option, okay? So, so that was our narrative. And again, at the Planning Commission hearing, when we were proposing the Heartlands project, it's like, why can't you build smaller homes? But there's some financial formulas that go into underwriting one of these projects, and the quote unquote sweet spot is at about that 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. But again, now we're going to look at this from another lens, okay? But in order for us to do that, okay, we have some PD overlay requirements, and we'll get into more detail on those as we continue. Okay, so before we were able to actually start thinking about a single-story product, we had to engage our architect, and we had to say, all right, let's do a land use study, okay? And the land use study came out to be 15 lots instead of 23. So that's hit number one on our pro forma. It's like, I mean, you should have saw it. The screen was flashing and saying, what are you doing? But we came up with this, okay? And then the first thing that we wanted to do, and again, so our architect initially looked at this, and I'm saying like, well, what about fire access and things like that? And he says, well, we do infill projects everywhere in the Bay Area, and he's out of Lafayette. And he says, oh, this gets stuff like this gets approved, as long as you can prove that the fire engine can have access, okay? So then the next step was, of course, to talk to Brian, and then, get his litness on it, okay? And
you meant 18 lots, not 15.
I'm sorry, 18. Okay, thank you. Okay, and you guys, but this is what Brian had produced for us that said, hey, if we had these 15 lots, and again, I'm not the engineer here, I can't talk to you about exact parameters, but he said, hey, this works. We can get fire trucks in and out of here, no problem. Okay, so he said, all right, great. So go to the next slide. Okay, but then, while we're getting our plans going and our designs for these 18 lots now, then came the city request for this 90-degree elbow, okay? And what's simulated there is that the red shows how it encroaches into the currently designed tentative map, okay? So with that, what happens is that negatively affects our land use, and it negatively affects our plan placement. Now, had this been a larger property, big deal. We got plenty of space to do that. Let's just put in this elbow, okay? But I'm going to show you the negative effects from a land use of what this does for us, okay? Is that the yellow area is the area that is now coming out of the original tentative map lots, okay? It's about 2,621 square feet. So if you look at the property line between lot 6 and lot 7, okay, that takes out 16 feet of lot depth, okay? If you look at the property line between 7 and 8, that takes out almost 24 feet of lot depth. If you look at the property line between lot 8 and 9, it takes out 13 feet, okay? So this knuckle or this elbow, is not affecting just lot 7 and 8. It has an effect on lot 6, and it has an effect on lot 9 as well, okay? So that's the area that we no longer have to work with to put our houses on, okay? So again, we don't usually just say no, 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 no. We go through the analysis and we try to figure it out to see if it can work. So as you can see, lot 6, if we put one of our plans on there, that yields us a backyard of 3 feet 7 inches, and I don't think you guys are going to prove that. If you look at lot 7, we have about 4 feet, 5 feet, let's say. Okay, moving over to lot 8, that gives us about 7.5 feet. Okay, moving to lot 9, it gives us 7 feet 6 inches. Okay, so and mind you, we could probably flip the driveway on lot 9 and maybe get a few more feet, but it wouldn't be anything tremendous, okay? So this is the, back up. So this is, so this creates a lot of negative effects for the project, okay? Next slide. Okay, so what I wanted to do, as it was mentioned in the staff report, I just want to go over some of the DRC meeting components, okay? Is that, the plans that were viewed are conceptual. Our final floor plans are underway, and we'd be prepared to show those to you on the 12th, okay? We also, because there's been a lot of discussion about concerns of elevations and what these puppies are gonna look like, we're having colored renderings completed as well, so you can get a little bit more of a different look, or a different way to evaluate, okay? Next item. So this right here from our DRC, because there's some confusion in the staff report that says we used to be looking at certain setbacks, but now it's less, okay? So this right here, and these are the tangibles from our DRC meeting, where on plan 1, we were showing a backyard of, let's just call that 21 feet, okay? Now, that has changed because the lot depth, which was once upon a time 74.80, has been reduced by 1 foot to 73.80 via Brian and his interface with Alan, okay? When we're designing some of these projects, we also have to add some form of wiggle room, and we usually make that about 18 inches. So we try to say, on paper we can do it, but let's give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room, okay? But the other thing that changed what we submitted at DRC versus the setbacks that we're at now is that at the advice of DRC, we changed the driveway setback from 18 to 20, okay? Which I think is a great idea, okay? Plan 2, again, we were looking originally at approximately 18. You take out the foot for the change in lot depth, you take out the 2 feet for the garage setback and then 18 inches of wiggle room. That gets you to about 14 feet, okay? Next one. Okay, now this is the plan 3 that we proposed to DRC, okay? That was showing a rear yard setback of about 12.8, okay? But again, we have to take out the 2 feet that we've added to the driveway. We got to take out the foot. And at that time, we basically said, you know what? And again, this plan 3 is the larger the plan, the more there's residual, if you will, on the project. But we chose that we're not going to build this plan 3 on the smaller lots. So, this would be a moot point as far as trying to get to a 12-foot setback for that particular portion of the street. Okay, next. This is what these plans all look like right now, okay? Again, I think it's, we're trying to meet a certain price point. We're trying to create home ownership for people who can't afford these 440s. So, but that's what the plans look like all together. Okay, next one. Okay. I wanted to go over a couple of things just so we're clear as for the staff recommendations that you guys have. I just wanted to talk to a few things regarding that, okay? So one of the items that was recommended in the staff report was the first item there, staff recommends including possibly 2 or 3 smaller 2-story homes, okay? That would break up the sameness of all 1-story houses, okay? So right now on this 18 lot project, okay, we just showed you 3 plans, okay? But we're gonna have to create another plan to fit on lot 18, okay, due to its irregular shape, the one by the EVA, okay? So we're already having to come up with 4 plans, okay? And again, because it's only 18 lots, you know, taking 2 or 3 or even 1 is 1 less of having that single-story home. So, you know, building 2-story home goes against our overall goal. Our overall goal, let's get some affordable homes into this area, okay? From a project underwriting perspective, we only have 18 lots to underwrite the cost, to absorb the cost of that plan, okay? Every time we add a new plan into a project, it's minimum by the time you pay for your plans, your engineering, all your staff time to put together all the upgrade campaigns and all that stuff is a minimum of $30,000 easily, okay? So if we have to add even one more plan, that's $30,000 of extra capital that has to go into this project. And when we feed that into an already ailing, if you will, pro forma, okay, it really starts to tilt things, okay? So basically, adding more plans to this project severely affects the feasibility of this project, okay? Staff recommends having more architectural diversity than what is shown on the preliminary plans. You know, so Crown and our architect feel that we have enough diversity based on our goal. You know, diversity is something totally subjective. You know, there's one person may say it's not diverse enough. Another person may say that it is, you know. We feel that it's diverse enough. The next item, staff recommends that roof pitches and roof styles differ. You know, again, we feel that our target being, we're trying to create these affordable homes. Let's not take our eye off that ball. You know, so the next item, staff is recommending veneers should be carried out around to the side yard fences. We can't afford to be putting a bunch of masonry and veneer on these homes, okay? But we can, if we have some stucco plant-on components, if we need to take those to the back or up to the fence line, we're happy to do that, okay? Then it mentions that staff is recommending that windows should be trimmed the same on all 4 sides. You know, again, we don't see any value on trim on all 4 sides unless, you know, it was a 2-story product like we did in Winter's Heartland, where we added trim up there. You know, because I mean, do these people that we're trying to provide this housing for care if the side of their house has trim or not? You know, okay. And then again, okay, next item, staff recognizes some of the changes may add cost, but believes they will create homes which are more visually attractive, okay? And again, I think this is one of the trade-offs. You know, I think this is one of the trade-offs. Is it all about visual appearance and not, and tell these people, sorry, we need to, you can't afford it, no problem. You know, we don't care. Okay, next item. With respect to the PD zoning, I wanted to make a few points. Is that in the report, it said that Crown is requesting the garage side yard setback to be reduced from 10 feet to 5 feet for all the lots. We are. This project, you know, in order to get what was going to be a 23 lot subdivision that we brought down to 18, if we had to start getting 10 feet on the side of the garages, okay, then obviously that's probably going to reduce another 3 lots. Okay, imagine what that's going to do to the possibility of this project happening. Okay, but I do want to touch a little bit more on this 10-foot scenario. Okay, we built in numerous municipalities for many years. Winters is the only municipality that says you gotta have 10 feet on the garage side. This is the only municipality who's ever mandated that. Okay? Okay, so we talked, now, with those 10-foot side yard setbacks, we may have a couple of lots that will achieve that. And that's lot 7 and 8, based on the existing land use that we have on the current tentative map. With respect to the last item on this, which says staff further recommends the planning commission include in their recommendation to the city council, the PD overlay, allow a reduced rear yard setback that provides the ability for a homeowner to add a trellis or patio cover, which is set back at least 5 feet from the rear yard property line and is limited to a maximum size of 120 feet. I totally agree with that. Matter of fact, we did some pretty cool stuff with Winters Heartlands to kind of, what would be the word, normalize how you can do that. But I do disagree with limiting it to a homeowner to say it can't be more than 120 feet. Okay, I think that, and again, being by our conscience, I think that there should be some sort of equation that's put together that says you can add as much covered patio or trellis that you want in this beautiful house here in Winters, as long as you don't exceed a certain lot coverage. So if we say, hey, it's 120 feet, yet their lot allows them to have 160 based upon lot coverage of 50%, I just hate to shut the door on them and just, throw them into something like that. Okay, so here is our PD overlay request parameters. What I wanted to do is I didn't want to just numerically say all this. I wanted to visually show what this looks like. So go to the next slide there. Okay, so if we just limit our scope right now to the first 7 lots there on Carnell Street, okay, there would be 2 different rear yard setbacks. One would be 14 if you do Plan 2. One would be 17 if you do Plan 1, okay? So what we're requesting on lots 1 through 7 on the rear yard is 14 feet because we have to establish a minimum. We don't know what plan we're building on what lot. So we're saying for lots 1 through 7, we're requesting 14 feet of rear yard, okay? Now, if we go down Granite Court, okay, the green color shows the 17-foot rear yard setback when you build a Plan 3. If you build a Plan 2, you get 22 feet of rear yards, which is that additional blue sliver. And then if you build a Plan 1, then you have as much as 26 feet of rear yard, which is pretty cool, okay? Lot number 15 there has 14 feet of rear yard due to its shape, okay? So what we're asking for is rear yard setbacks overall 14 feet to 17 feet, recognizing that there's going to be a lot that are going to be at 22. There's going to be a lot that are going to be at 26. These are just the minimums, okay? So lot number 18 there, where we're requesting 12 feet, okay, is purely a function of trying to get a plan that's going to fit on that property, okay? So that is the 4th plan that we're gonna have to come up with that isn't done yet. And that one shows that we need 12.44 feet of rear yard, but you'll notice that the property line skews. It's 12 just at the very, show the where the plan is, right there. So that is our PD overlay. Again, just to kind of touch base on and again, we've got basically everything is defined. We want 5 yard on the garage side, 5 yard on the other side, and then yeah, so that's our rear yard. I do want to speak to a couple of things that were identified in the staff report, okay? And the staff report stated that we are requesting to exceed the applicable allowable lot coverage. We're not, okay? We're not asking to exceed the lot coverage of 50%, okay? Another thing that the staff report has stated is that, that we are looking to have as little as 12 feet for the rear yard, but it's just for lot 18 due to its irregular shape. Okay. Another thing that the staff report stated was that on lots 15, and 18, that there would be a setback that's more than 10 feet, okay? David mentioned something about let's move those houses over, but we can't because those are corner lots. You see, so what we have to have, for example, on lot 1, because it's a corner, in other words, if you go through that chart, go to lot 1, there's the footage, it's a corner lot, okay? We're doing 20 feet. So the minimum setback to the living area is 13 in the front, okay? But the side yard setback is 14 that we're requesting, because it's a corner lot, okay? Next slide, sir. So here, let's just talk about our goal, okay? Is that we totally appreciate everything that the city of Winters has done in support of our Heartlands project, that is much appreciated. So our goal for this project is basically the following, is to provide smaller single-story homes, 14 to 1,900 square feet. Provide a lower entry price point than current new home options, okay? Provide local residents with a new home option that is more affordable than current projects. So the next time I get beat up at the Buckhorn, I'm gonna say, you have an opportunity to buy one, okay? So that's our goal, okay? But our goal means nothing unless, go to the next slide. Unless the city is willing to make some concessions to make that happen, okay? The concessions that we're asking for is allow the 5-foot side yard setbacks on the garage side. Allow smaller rear yards on some of the lots, okay? Not require the 90-degree elbow because of the ability for fire trucks. Again, I'm not an engineer, but based upon what our engineer is stating, okay? And deviate from the Winters design guidelines for this infill project, okay? And, I would have a tough time if I was trying to push this project about deviating from Winters design guidelines if we were on Main Street, okay? Main Street is very important, okay? But we're talking about a street that is not a through street, that's just off of Anderson, okay? And, so basically for this project, we're proponents of people who don't have the ability to pluck down $440,000 to buy a house. That's our target. That's our goal, but our goal cannot be achieved unless you guys can provide us these concessions. Next. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
We should probably open it up to public comment, and then we'll go to questions and that. 7:34, we'll open it up to public input. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Speak now or forever hold your peace. 7:34, we'll close it. He's got it. Questions? Commissioners?
I do. You always do. Firewall, the philosopher in me, I suppose.
The attorney. He's studying for his law degree, so.
I don't know who to direct them to, but as far as the timing on this, the staff recommendation as of now is to delay until November 12th to give us the opportunity to kind of vet it a little bit more, which I think is important, especially because with the drawings and stuff that you guys provided, it contextualizes things a little bit. Is there a big objection to that, or I wasn't sure about what you guys were.
I can address that.
Proposing today.
Originally on this project, the goal on this project was September 24th. eventually got moved. There was a lot of changes that occurred to today's date. And then, a couple weeks back, it got moved on to November 12th. So as far as what would be our preference, if you can handle this today with what you have, that would be our preference. We have a limited time frame on the project to move forward with it or not. We're nearing the end of the time frame for that. And realistically, this is one of the big things neither one of us has mentioned. One of the big factors of moving forward on this project is the fact it's right next to where we're operating right now. We have a sales center there, we have everything going there to where to implement this at the bare margins that Cam mentioned to you, it can't happen anywhere else. In other words, if we were to find a like property in the city of Winters somewhere by itself for 18 homes, I wouldn't look at it. There's too much mobilization, too much effort, too much expense. There is not really any likelihood that I could find something like that. Now, it's not all about us, so it's a matter of being right next to it makes it more feasible than not.
But November 12th doesn't preclude the project from moving forward. And the only reason I ask is because it changes the conversation. I imagine if it's, yes, it will preclude it, then this conversation becomes yes, no. If it's no, it won't preclude it, this conversation becomes, what do we need, what information do we need from you guys and staff to look at it then? And
Well,
so
I
that's-
appreciate
but
that.
if it's yes, no, it changes the
I would
conversation.
say
There's not
right-
a lot of information
yes.
right now for us to make
I'd
that
say
decision.
right now, we're in the position of knowing that it's probably gonna be moved forward to November 12th. So, I'd say the only request we would have is during the time between now and that date, is we work out all these little parameters before the November 12th. That would be with Dave and everything.
And it's staff's position that, that much time will be enough for you guys to,
I think so. I mean, a lot of what you've seen tonight, I never saw. So plotting the houses on the individual lots to see how they will work, none of that information I have. So now that this exists, if Homer shares it with me, and we meet, I think we can answer most of the questions that they brought up and I brought up tonight. In the end, some of the things we're gonna disagree on, and you're gonna have to make that hard choice. But at least on many of the things that were in the staff report, I think we can address between now and the 12th.
so I think given that, as far as like an opening comment that I would have is, there's a lot of competing interests in this. Because I don't think it's as simple as saying affordable, yes, no, good looking homes, yes, no. I mean, I think it's really gonna take a lot of counterbalancing of those things. And it's not just, does the homeowner who is now able to afford this home like or dislike the fact that you didn't extend something, or you didn't put a certain look on it, or you didn't put those metal posts that we've requested in the past. It's, do any of those things affect the general area or the neighbor? And then the other thing too is, if you reduce the cost going in, that doesn't always translate directly a one-to-one basis to what the homeowner is going to get. And so I think it would be, in our analysis, we need to do enough so that we know that we're not sacrificing, aesthetics and all of these things, so that ultimately they get priced, above what we were anticipating while we're analyzing these things. Not to say that you shouldn't be able to price them as you see fit, but at the end of the day, it has to be counterbalanced between those two things. So I think in our conversation, I imagine a lot of our questions are going to be centered around that. And that's only one side of it. The other side of it, with regard to the elbow, I mean, that's a pretty big deal functionally. And I know that you can say, no parking, you can say this, you can say that, but at the end of the day, on the day of the fire, all that matters is what's actually there, not what was planned for. And so if you don't give yourself enough wiggle room, I mean, I think that's a legitimate concern. So it might take something really creative on those corner lots to fix. I don't know what that can be at this time, but as it is, it seems like something pretty important to make sure clear, even with the contingency of somebody doing something they weren't supposed to do. So I definitely think that needs to be vetted further. And then the other thing too is, it'll be helpful once we get the drawings of the color ones, because these all look this, I mean, I know they're different, but they don't look different now. The same way the drawings of those houses and the pictures you took probably didn't look too different on the onset, but then you see them in color, you see them in person, and it changes things a little bit. And that's the information we need in order to do, our proper due diligence in making sure that we're making the correct decision, because a rush decision isn't ever a good decision. So, just wanna-
Okay, other questions? I want Cal and Ken, I want to thank you for, I think the commission would agree, I know I would agree, we're in complete support of your goal, which we've talked about, which is a better mix of houses being built in winters than that sweet spot of 2,000 or 1,946 square feet or whatever it is. But I think to get to that goal, that there's definitely going to have to be some compromise. On the map of the things that have been approved, I think one of them, the cottages, was an affordable housing project. So of course that falls under a whole different set of guidelines and agreements in terms of where those got put together. But I agree completely with the idea that the no parking won't work. The day of the fire, somebody will be parked there. And so I think we have to plan on people will park there, and again, it's this sort of a back neighborhood on a dead end. It's not going to get a lot of attention. People aren't going to get in a lot of trouble if they park there. So I agree with staff that it's got to be designed around the fact that there's very little of it is banked on the fact that people will obey the idea of no parking wherever it's deemed as that. So to me, the knuckle makes sense. That does take out some square footage, but what was put up there, that's 14% of the space in those two combined lots. So it's a chunk of land. Every inch counts in something this tight, but it seems to me that, and as staff mentioned, possibly some two-story homes. I was doing some checking, and the point there, the goal is price points. But, and talking to several different people, a 1,700 square foot, one-story or two-story comes in at a very similar cost. So I don't think mixing in some two stories, other than changing your cost plan, dramatically affects the potential of, hitting some lower price points than we currently have in winters. What might make sense, and I don't know how developed Model 3 is scrap Model 3 and come in with a two-story option as the Model 3, so you keep your plan cost at a closer to what you want it to be. I was supportive of what you put up in the DRC meeting, of all the roof lines being the same. I understood the idea. I was supportive of they're all the same, which lowers the cost. I've had discussions since. The Planning Commission is volunteer folks who don't bring with it any particular degrees or contracting experience or design experience or anything. We learn as we go. And I'm agreeing with staff after a lot of conversation that somehow there needs to be some variation, and it might even just be the pitch. It might even just be, I don't know, a little bit of variation in that roof, keeping cost in mind. I think an important thing, and it was brought up at the DRC meeting, that was brought up by Wade Cohen, that roofing materials can make a significant difference in the look of the roofs and minimize the impact of a row of, like somebody came in and built 18 rental homes to just rent them out. They didn't care about them. They just wanted the lowest cost. And, we, as a planning commission, we have got to be, as Greg said, aware of the surrounding neighborhoods, aware of the long-term impact of how that neighborhood looks and feels. The very first home I ever bought, which will somewhat show my age, was $19,950. 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome. And going through, and there were a few things wrong on the inspection, and this great older guy that worked for the company that built them, and I said, oh, we gotta fix this, we gotta fix that. I go, God, I might be being a little too picky. And he said, you aren't being too picky at all. Every single home is somebody's castle. And we always have to look at it that way. So these little things, they do add cost, there's no question, but these homes are gonna be somebody's castle. And so these little things, we gotta figure out a way to come to a compromise on some of these and still go after the goal of having the lowest price point of new homes in Winters. Did all of these lot setbacks and everything, these are all based on the 20-foot driveways?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, because the drawings are still showing the 18-foot.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So now I gotta go to my notes. Showing that driveways. And yeah, there'll be more detail on the drawings on the 12th.
Yeah, so on the 12th, what we'll be in a position to do, because we've already made the investment with the architect to do this, we've made a further investment to get them into CAD files, a further investment to put together some colored tangibles for you guys so we can show, and our architect will be here on the 12th as well. He would have been here today, but he's out of the country. Yeah, so we'll be able to show you a lot more things. If you don't mind, could I just interject on one of your comments?
Yes.
So,
Can you come up
sure.
and do it? That'd be great.
Yeah, so as far as we talked about having 3 plans, and now we have to have the 4th because of lot 18. Okay, but if we were to go ahead and say, let's take the big plan and turn it into a 2-story, right? The problem with that is that there's no normalcy between the knuckle lots and the rest of the lots. So if we scrap that plan and replace it with a 2-story plan, it's not gonna fit on the square lots. It'll either just fit on the square lots or it'll just fit on the cul-de-sac lots. Where staff is requesting that knuckle or elbow.
So a
Yeah.
2-story wouldn't fit where the 1-stories do?
Well, I'm saying if you pull up the map there,
Okay.
Hunter.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at, first just go to the overall land use map. Okay. Yeah, so right now, and that was the reason why it was partially designed this way, is that whatever building module fits on lots 1 through 6.
Right.
15 through 17, and 9 through 14 will in fact fit on 7 and 8. So if we were to say, all right, let's get rid of Plan 3 as a single story and make it a 2-story, it has to either be designed just to fit on lot 7 or 8 or the other lots. You see what I'm saying? So you can't build, like for example, if point to lot 7 there for a second. Let's say that we were to design a 2-story plan that's our replacement for Plan 3, and develop it, create this plan to fit on lot 7 or 8.
Right.
It's not going to fit on the rest of the lots because we're dealing with a very finite canvas.
Well,
So,
but if it's even an 1,800 square foot
right, sir.
2-story, it's got a 900 square foot footprint
Yes, sir. But
compared to a 1,700 square foot single story.
right, but what I'm saying is by the time you actually, it has to be wider. Go to the knuckle exhibit.
The garage is on.
Go to the knuckle exhibit.
Okay.
In other words,
This one?
no, the one that shows the highlights. See, so then we're actually dealing with a different plan, if you will. And again, I'm not saying that it's not possible, okay? But at face value, as I look at it here right now, recognizing we're trying to keep an affordable modular, if you will, right? That I have concern that there is not an ability to normalize the large plan to fit on the square lots and these cul-de-sac lots. But I will examine that.
Okay.
And, in other words, when we meet next time, I'll be talking to my architect prior to that to kind of look at that. But again, it all goes back to, like for example, if you look at lot number 7,
Mm-hmm.
and that being, just by virtue of how it's shaped and trying to get all the setbacks, I don't know, but I'm willing to examine that.
Okay. In the, what do they call this? The draft conditions of approval. And it has in here, there's some things, if you go to 24, does all of this relate to these 18
They're
lots?
supposed to relate to the,
Or did it, because sometimes we go grab stuff and.
no, so the design review comments, and
Yeah.
there's a few under community development, those are mine that are specific to this.
Okay,
All of Alan's comments are based on this new plan,
okay,
to the extent that it is fully developed, and it wasn't quite, the knuckle issue was still
Right.
sort of left up in the air.
right. On 29, universal design features shall be incorporated as an option in residential units. Is that how we've handled it
Yes,
in others?
yes, and so I took
Yeah.
that same conditions in the Heartlands project, it's the same condition in the Stone Store project. I just.
Is there some point where we should mandate a certain amount of universal design?
I don't know whether there's any legal basis for how much you have to have,
You mean we're governed by law?
but I do know
Yeah.
that we've asked for that in the past, and I don't know whether the Green Code talks about it or Title 24 talks about it.
Could you, because we've got, what do we have now? We've got 150 homes, or we got 100 and some homes occupied.
Right.
Any way we could find out how many of those got built with universal design?
I can ask, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they obviously know what they've done. I mean, one of the things that we wanted is that the entries were at grade level,
Yeah.
so that you could get in and out of a house without having to have a step.
Right.
That was one of the key
And there's some
components.
lots that just,
And then I think the other thing was whether or not a homeowner could come to you and say, I need a universally designed home. Will they make alterations to the interior to accommodate that?
and on affordable housing, how's that dealt with an 18 unit?
So they're under an obligation to do 3. They would have one of these homes that would be on site, that would be moderate. And then the other 2, they would be probably proposing as part of their affordable housing plan to pay an inlet fee. That's my guess. And then the other 17 homes would be market rate. So only one home would have a restriction, and it would just be, it would restrict the resale of the home for 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, but almost all of these are gonna sell at market rate by definition, because it's a countywide average, just because of what they're trying to shoot for.
Right.
But the one that would have the restriction on it would be restricted over 10 years.
Under erosions and sedimentation, there's some SWPPP. What-
SWIP, so if you grade sometime between October 15th and April 15th, you have to put in wattles and lots of other things to keep the sediment from the site
Okay.
going into the storm drainage system.
And then WDIT pound sign, what
Where
are
you looking
these, that same number 63?
at?
There's 2 things there that I have no idea what they are.
He's the engineer. I didn't write these.
That's just a matter of curiosity.
Well, the SWIFT and all the WDIDs and all that stuff, it's all mandated by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, their standard conditions.
Okay.
They have to be in there. Erosion control is critical. If you think our conditions are tough,
Go to
they
Tahoe.
have to submit their SWIFT
Yeah.
to the regional board for approval. and inspection.
So erosion control measures are supposed to be taken, are part of the project year round. And then October stuff doesn't fly anymore. It's supposed to be done year round. And it's a matter of being the site maintained by the contractors, a clean site. It's not just erosion control anymore. And so the SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, is a plan that's posted to the state. The state gives a quick review, but there's certain requirements we have to fill out for that, and then they're assigned WDID number. Usually, we
okay.
cannot start a project until we get a WDID number.
And that's what, like, the houses out there now have a lot of the ground covered with material?
Correct.
That's okay. Okay, great. That was more out of curiosity than anything. So the comments on the patio cover, 120 feet versus, in any particular lot, if there's room for one.
Yeah, and again, I was flying blind.
Yes, because you didn't have a lot
Yeah,
coverage.
once we sit down and talk about the individual lots, it'll be easier to, and I agree with them. If they can accommodate a 200 square foot patio cover and still fit within the parameters, I'm fine with that.
Okay. And I think the point, Cal, on the kids walking down the street instead of making their way through the easement, it's the same as the no parking thing. Kids are gonna go where kids go. It is, I live over in one of those neighborhoods, and when school's out, they're just like ants through the neighborhoods and across the back of Dave's house and through the flood relief road and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's so I don't know what that entails, and I'm not sure what the problem was there.
I would say that.
Can you clarify that?
So I'm just trying to point out what you just said.
Yeah.
You can tell them they're not supposed to go, but you can't make that EVA access inaccessible to kids. If you do, you're gonna make it look like a prison. And so I'm just saying, like water, it's gonna flow to the point that's natural and,
John?
Dave, do we know, so the EVA access is gonna be open?
well, it's gonna be open in the sense that it won't look like it's completely gated and fenced off, where you have to unlock.
It'll stop vehicles.
It'll
but
stop vehicles,
but it
but
won't
it won't
stop
stop
pedestrians.
The idea of fencing it off so that it would stop kids would make it still probably something they'd overcome, but it would look unattractive, because you'd have to put up 6-foot cyclone fencing or some unclimbable fencing material. And it would, in a residential neighborhood.
Razor wire on the.
Yeah, in a residential neighborhood, it
That'll
just
keep them
doesn't,
out.
yeah, that would.
Can I ask a question? So, is there an irrevocable access or easement that the LDS church is gonna give?
There will be, in order to provide access for emergency
So there's
vehicles,
gonna be an irrevocable
access easement.
easement that's gonna go over the entire.
I don't know, I
Part of the
think that has to be determined. I know they show fire engines coming in on the western side and then serpentine through. We always expected they would come in on the easternmost driveway and go straight ahead. I don't know, and I have to talk to Cameron Cowell why the plan that they presented tonight showed something that was different than what I anticipated, and I presume Alan did. But wherever the point of getting to, from the Anderson to the EVA, it's gonna have to have an access easement, and an irrevocable access easement, so that if the church sells to another church, the new church can't say, oh, we're gonna close it off, sorry, you can't use it.
Yep.
It has to
And
be-
that easement, I mean, would that easement be just for fire engines and
It's
police, or
supposed to
would
be
it
just
be,
for emergency
Okay.
vehicle,
so not for pedestrians?
not for pedestrians. But again, I've never seen one, maybe they have, where you make it so that kids, or adults for that matter, can't overcome a fire gate in order to take the shortest distance between 2 points.
Was that what was being requested? I got lost on that point when he was up there, because I couldn't figure out what exactly the issue was.
Well, so
Did he want a fence? Did you want a fence or?
no, Cal's trying to demonstrate that kids are not that lazy that they're going to cut through this parking lot. They're gonna walk around and come out like civilized people on the sidewalk. And I'm saying probably a large share of them will, especially on lots 1 through 6, or maybe 7 through 8. But if I'm on those back cul-de-sac lots, I'm going through the shortest distance to my house. I just am.
No, I think
That
that's right. I
was
just
the,
don't
that was the
understand
discussion.
what did it matter?
Well, because there's liability. Emergency vehicle access is one thing. You can deal with that because that's easier to put your arms around from a liability standpoint. But if you've got kids cutting through back and forth and they get hit by somebody driving through the parking lot, you know, are they gonna sue the church? They probably are. And so that's the
I
concern.
guess maybe I'm not, yeah. What were you asking for? Is it was my, sorry, Dave.
Sorry.
Okay, I was just asking, not asking, but pretty much making a point of saying, okay, if I was the property owner of that parking lot, I would have an issue of pedestrians traveling over the parking lot at any given time. Because of exactly the reasons that Dave brought up, liability, right?
What's your proposed solution? That's what I was missing. Like,
Well, the proposed solution was like a 1-minute walk that
Well,
he did.
that's-
So I'm not sure if you have a gate that kids are gonna automatically wanna tear that gate down, because the gate, the gate that the fire department would have there is not gonna be just a white picket fence. It will be a gate that you can't open, is that right?
No.
It's
No.
the
I-
bars and
I will tell you, it will be bollards and that will be it. And the examples are out of the Dry Creek subdivision. There's an access that goes between the cemetery and the detention pond. That's only bollards. And at the end of Ivy Loop, when that subdivision originally went in, there was a wooden fence there. And that was torn down about the second week. And since then, if you look, it's actually been amazing. They've replaced that fence over the years, but it will be bollards.
So most all of the EVAs right now don't have a fence, it's pretty much just bollards, just open. free
Removable
for anybody to go
bollards.
through.
The reality is the pedestrians will be walking through that parking lot. It's just the way that it is. Especially the kids going to the school. They're gonna save a minute walk on their way to
I mean,
school.
the one thing I looked at
What do we join the church?
was, you know, wouldn't it be nice if you could open the fence to the school? But because of all the issues with school safety now, you can't do that.
Right, yeah, control access.
Yeah.
So, so I think, I mean, we're not actually taking any motion tonight. Yes, Ken.
Can I add one more thing? I
Yes.
just wanted to share with you.
Can you come up? Yeah.
I just wanted to share with you that we didn't go through and actually vet, if you will, all the conditions of approval because of these loose ends. So there may be some things on there that were not,
Okay.
okay, so we just like to be able to retain that right to talk about those. Thank you.
You have to the 12th to work those out with Dave.
And Alan.
And Alan.
And Art.
And John.
And Art. And John.
I will assure you that at the next meeting, there will be a full house of city staff here to address anything and everything that's brought up.
It was, and I've had this conversation with Dave, this is just in one of these meetings, at the DRC meeting, we had the, fire department, Art was there. And it was brought up that, they felt, the fire department felt that we'd gone ahead and done things that they hadn't been totally up to speed with in the past. And that that was a shortcoming as a city, as a planning commission, as a city council, and that, when we're approving a planned development overlay, I think we should insist that somebody from the fire department, the right person from the fire department, be here to bless anything before we, at the meeting, before we go ahead and approve it. They've given the input on this and you've adjusted roads. They're giving input on that knuckle and they want the knuckle. And, so, but I think just more for city staff going forward, I would ask that we do that. We aren't always working on housing development, so not all that often. We've done a lot of that already. So I don't think we're approving anything or taking any action. We've hopefully given you enough our input. Commissioners, do you want to add anything?
No, though, the concern about the emergency was one of the big things that stood out for me, so I'm
Okay,
glad we're discussing it.
okay. And any other commissioners' comments? And I love the goal. It's something as you said, I've made noise about, Lisa's made noise about it, and others, and Bill at our mayor at at DRC meetings and any other gathering. I personally think as a planning commission, we've gone along with too many of the 2,000 square foot home after 2,000 square foot home after 2,000 square foot home. That's kind of hindsight, at least on my part. That's one person's opinion. And that we have we need to do a better job of seeing that Winters has more diversified new housing being built. I'm not even sure what that looks like. It might be attached homes, it might be townhouses, it might be duplexes, triplexes, or whatever. That's in keeping with the kinds of noise and things, the ideas that the state's talking about. And that I think it would be my opinion as a planning commission, as a city staff, and as a city council, we should be making more noise about that. So hopefully we'll see how, and this is a step in the right direction if we can make enough things happen between now and the 12th. So any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are we continuing this or?
So, yeah, from the newspaper standpoint, I would prefer if you continued it. I take it back. I've got to send out a new notice. Because we now have the design review element in it. When I did the notice that was for tonight's meeting, it did not include design review, but my understanding is they want that at the next hearing as well. So I've got to do a whole new notice.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to notice anyways, because we
I
want,
planned on noticing the neighbor, but
maybe somebody will show up.
well, yeah, it's like it's an info project.
Right. So we won't continue it, and it'll be a new
It'll be a new hearing.
hearing.
But it is tentatively, well,
On
not
the
tentatively,
12th.
scheduled for the 12th.
Scheduled for the 12th.
I've got the notices drafted, so.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments, staff comments, city manager comments?
No, just real quick, I spent all day today in Sacramento on meeting with people, the governor's office, the county PA, State Water Resources Control Board on
Chromium 6.
That's right,
Is it raising its ugly head again?
in a very big way. Met with, I went and I presented with a number of people from throughout the state. We met with the chair of the board, another board member, their general counsel, the governor's office. And, it's a big deal. And we got a 2-year reprieve. And I went and I met with a couple of chief of staff and legislators after the meeting. We said, well, we give you a 2-year reprieve. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brown. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
We will see you on the 12th.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll get it. Email these.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
anyway, it was it was a very interesting day. I'll tell you, I'm exhausted. There were 3 of us who presented at each one of the meetings, and
Wow.
there's a lot of stuff, but on Chromium 6 alone, they're looking at over just the initial outlay throughout the state would probably exceed $2 billion. And then that does include the operation and maintenance of systems to address Chromium 6. There's a white paper that's going to be coming out on 2 years ago. The reason why the issue was dropped was based on a lawsuit that we all participated in, and it required an economic analysis to be done. We actually had an opportunity to meet a couple of the authors of that white paper, and they said that they're circulating it through the key people at EPA right now, and it should be released in the coming months, but we can give us a sneak peek at what that says, and it's a big issue. In winters, we would see a massive increase in our water rates. Right now, residents pay about $23 as the base of their water rate, and it would probably go up over $105 a month. So we're staring down a huge increase in that, not only to mention the operation and maintenance of the system. And, our past projects have looked at about $40 million to do it, to be spread across 2,500 units.
So growth, don't quote me, I'd say this after the meeting's over.
Oh.
Growth would help.
Well, no, it wouldn't help at all.
No?
Because as I told the chair of the board, I said, for all of us, I don't know who would be silly enough to loan us the money to build a $40 million project that doesn't expand capacity or reliability or provide a single drop of water. It would just be to address this one contaminant limit. And it's a very interesting, when the white paper comes out, I'll make sure that I distribute it wide and far, but it's very serious because, one analogy that I threw at him, I said, well, for California compared to the rest of the country regarding the Chrome 6, MCL stands for maximum contaminant limit, MCL. Nationally, 49 other states, their maximum contaminant limit on Chrome 6 is 100 parts per billion. In California right now, it's 50 parts per billion. And they want to drop it to 10 or below. It's the equivalent of us going to a 2 mile per hour speed limit. There are a lot of things out there. I'll tell you, if you're going to get sick from your water, by the way, California has the cleanest water in the world that's delivered to our customers. Perspective-wise, though, when you look at contamination in water, for us and for most of the state, Chrome 6 is basically a naturally occurring element. There's a lot of natural stuff in water. I mean, let's face it, we're pumping groundwater. There's a whole geologic spectrum that it's going through, so it's going to pick up different elements. Chromium 6 probably is the least of most people's concerns. Naturally, if you ingest something with Chromium 6, your mouth and your saliva actually changes the molecular structure of the Chromium 6 for most people. The anomaly in all this is that there are some people that genetically, when you drink the water that might have Chromium 6 in it, your saliva flips it to Chromium 3. There's a very minute population where genetically they don't have that. It doesn't do that. So they would be susceptible to a very rare form of stomach cancer. But it's a very small population. And I think the number we saw, there were 40 million people who live in California, and there would probably be less than a very small, less than, the number I heard was less than 20 out of 40 million people that might be susceptible to this. So hopefully that's.
It'd be cheaper to start a fund and award them $5 million each when they get it.
It would, and we would
Take it like you won something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh, the meeting's still on. Do not write that down.
But yeah.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:15, but yeah, see,
Yeah, is we're looking at the cost benefit analysis, I mean, it would be the, I guess if you want to eliminate car crashes, you could do what? You could eliminate cars, right? There's a way to solve everything. But it's a complex issue, and it was interesting meeting with some people that are really the top dogs in what they do, and it was, I'll be honest with you, I'm exhausted from it, because as we went and presented, this was a very hallmark day to meet with some of the main decision makers and influencers on them, and so you gotta bring your A game. So,
Great.
I'll keep everybody in the loop.
Okay. Everybody can go to a run on Sunday.
That's right, spectacular, 10K.
How many people are signed up?
I know that, the other night we went past 200.
Okay.
So,
Now.
correct.